Good afternoon and welcome to the January 8th, 2025 edition of Office Hours presented by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. My name is Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy. I'm the founder and executive director of the center, and I thank you so much for joining me today. We're starting a little bit late, so I want to get right into the content and just remind you all, since it's been a while, it's been, my goodness, almost a month since our last edition of Office Hours. So I want to tell you a bit about the center, issue a quick disclaimer, share some updates, and get into our questions. So the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness was founded in 2021 with a vision for all college and career school students in Maryland, and that is that they would be able to achieve these 6 pillars of collegiate financial wellness. Those are being creditworthy, ready, resilient, empowered, successful, and thriving. And as always, I'm not going to read the small print, but if you're interested in learning more about the center or even ways to support, please do visit us online at mccfw.org. Now, tonight, the office hours, it's our goal to give you the best information that we can about student loans and to help you craft your personal repayment strategy. However, I do have to issue a disclaimer that office hours is presented for informational purposes only. The information presented here does not constitute personal, legal, or financial advice. We do the best that we can, but over the past couple of years, especially, this has been a very fluid space. And so it's easy for some of our content to get outdated fairly quickly. We'll see if that trend continues, but either way, just know that we do our best to give you the most accurate information, but it does not constitute personal, legal, or financial advice. All right, now that that's out of the way, I just want to give a couple of quick updates before we get into some of the questions that'll be answered today. The first update that I wanted to give you all is around public service loan forgiveness. In mid-December, we saw that the Biden-Harris administration issued forgiveness for about 55,000 people, and those are public servants. So that forgiveness was specific to the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. And after the announcement went out, we've heard several victories. We had more than 1 million over a couple of days, and we've had some trickle in as recently as last night. So congratulations to everyone who has crossed that PSLF finish line, and thank you for your public service. A question that a lot of people are asking right now is, if they didn't get their public service loan forgiveness yet, are they still going to get it? And as far as I can see, public service loan forgiveness is going to continue. So just do your part in making sure that you complete your PSLF applications to update your employment. And just keep looking at studentaid.gov so that you can get the updated version of your qualifying payment count and know where you stand relative to the 120 qualifying payments that you need to ultimately be approved for public service loan forgiveness. As far as repayment in general is concerned, I know some people who are enrolled in SAVE are still concerned about what's going on. And for right now, you're still in a holding pattern. That forbearance, that means that you're not supposed to be accruing interest or having payments due if your loans are enrolled in SAVE. Some of you might be receiving some updates to switch your repayment plan. I heard from a borrower this morning. I have to look in to that case, but this is a borrower who is enrolled in SAVE and received an email that said they needed to take action. They had an update regarding PSLF and that they needed to take action. And once they logged in, the action was about switching repayment plans. So I will ask around, take a look at my own account to see if I received that update, and we'll definitely give you more about that update a bit later. But for now, SAVE is still in the same place it has been for the past several months, which is in a forbearance pending the result of a court case. And we'll let you know if we see anything move. I do want to address one other thing, and that is the IDR adjustment. IDR adjustment stands for the income-driven repayment adjustment. And we've been waiting for a long time to get the update on the adjustment. The adjustment is important because the IDR adjustment was supposed to assign a payment count to everyone who had direct and federally held student loans. And that would let everyone know where they stand relative to the cancellation milestones that are in place for income-driven repayment plans. So we've been waiting for a while for those payment counts to come out, have not seen them come out. I do want to share that I was able to find a version of my own by doing a little bit of digging into the script of the website, and I'm happy to share those instructions for those who might want to follow it. I would just caution you that view is not official because payment counts have not been published, but the information is accessible and hopefully accurate. So we'll make sure to get those instructions posted to our website, and we will continue to wait and see if there will be payment counts going out as a result of that IDR adjustment sometime very soon. All right, another update I want to share in the vein of PSLF is that for the longest time, we've been instructing people to view their payment counts by logging into studentaid.gov and then going to the track your PSLF progress item under the quick links, or going to the loan detail and looking at each individual loan record to see qualifying payment counts. However, things appear to be getting easier. I saw this on my screen when I logged into studentaid.gov and got to the dashboard. We're used to seeing that big kind of postcard looking image about the FAFSA, but for those of us who are or have applied for PSLF, now the dashboard includes the payment progress. So as soon as you log in and get to that dashboard page, you can see where you stand relative to that 120-month milestone. So this is definitely, if I may say so, a step in the right direction in terms of making the pursuit of information about PSLF counts more user-friendly. So thank you to the Department of Education for making that happen. All right, let's get into our first question. That question is about PSLF. I received an email from McPhee with a video to check my PSLF count. I finally got around to it during Christmas break. The count says 120 payments with 0 remaining. I've not received a letter. Does this mean what I think? Should I continue to make payments on my student loan? My servicer has a payment due later this month. Well, the short answer is yes, it means what you think it means, and congratulations. I can also say, since I received this question from this borrower, we saw a lightning fast update. Within a couple of days, the borrower received their congratulations letter to let them know that they had met the requirements for PSLF. Their loans were going to be discharged. And not only would they not have to make the next payment, which was due in a couple of days, but they're actually set to get a refund for payments that they recently made that were over the 120 qualifying payment mark. So to any of you who have that payment count sitting at 120, but you don't have the official update yet, the 120 qualifying payment count does mean that you have met the requirements of PSLF. And when you see that 120 payment count, you should see the word congratulations there. But I totally get why you might be hesitant to believe is true, because you probably got there after seeing a page that still had your loan balance on it. So the information is definitely conflicting. But I just want to share a bit with you about how the forgiveness process works. It's not something that's automatic. The first part of it is you have to apply. So you have to submit that application, and you have to keep on submitting applications until you get to the point where you have a documented 120 qualifying payments. Once you get to the place where you have the 120 qualifying payments, it's going to take some time for the loans to actually be discharged and for you to get that official letter that says, congratulations, you've met the requirements of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. A lot of times this is confusing to people because they think that as soon as they hit 120, it's automatic, but it's actually not. What it means is that you've met the requirements, but I'm assuming there's a batch process that's performed that pulls in everyone who's met 120 at the time that that process is performed, and that triggers the communication to say, congratulations, your loans have been forgiven, and what the discharge is. So just hang in there. Know that the forgiveness is coming. The important part is that you meet the 120 qualifying payment milestone. And if you met that milestone, then there's nothing else that you need to do. You just need to wait for the forgiveness to become official. Now, for this particular borrower, my response was that, you received that, you were able to see that 120 qualifying payment count, and within 3 to 5 weeks, you should receive a letter, because that's usually kind of the lag time that we've seen. However, things move much faster. And I'm happy for this borrower, and congratulations again on having reached that milestone of 120 qualifying payments. All right, let's move on to our next question. The next question is also about PSLF. It is, do payments made prior to federal employment qualify toward PSLF? The short answer is it depends. on if you were working prior to the federal employment and if you had loans repayment at that time. Because PSLF requires that you have two things happening at the same time in order to get credit for a qualifying month. So you have to have loans that are in repayment, and you also have to have qualifying employment for an organization that is designated as a qualifying employer for the purposes of PSLF. So only your payments that are made while working for a qualifying employer and on a qualifying repayment plan will count toward PSLF. I want to send a quick reminder to everyone that PSLF, when it comes to the employment, your actual job title is not what's important here. It's about the type of organization that you work for. So if you work for an organization that is a part of the government, that could be federal, state, local, or tribal. If you work for a 501c3 nonprofit organization or another type of nonprofit organization that provides certain qualifying services to the general public, or if you're a full-time volunteer serving in AmeriCorps or Peace Corps, that time can count toward PSLF. But time before that employment would not count toward PSLF if you were not employed with one of these types of organizations. And during the time of that employment, you did not have loans in repayment. So the key to gaining credit toward PSLF is having those two things in place at the same time. It's loans that are in repayment and enrolled in a qualifying repayment plan. And the second piece is that the loans have to be in repayment while you were employed for a qualifying employer. So let's move on to the next question. All right, this question is a question for anyone that applied to switch from SAVE to IBR. Just a quick explanation of those acronyms. SAVE is Saving on a Valuable Education. That's a repayment plan that is income driven. And then IBR is also another income driven repayment plan. It's called income-based repayment. But both of these are income-driven repayment plans. The difference between the two, there are a few differences, but the main difference that's driving this question is that SAVE is the subject of a lawsuit. And because SAVE is tied up in a court case, loans that are enrolled in SAVE are in a forbearance, whereas income-based repayment or IBR is not tied up in that lawsuit. So a person can still be making progress toward cancellation by way of PSLF or income-based repayment. So we're looking for people who have switched from SAVE to IBR successfully. And if you've done that, I would like to hear from you. This is a person who decided to apply for IBR, I'm guessing so that they can continue making progress toward IBR cancellation or toward PSLF. And they wanted to make the switch from SAVE to IBR. This person has loans serviced by Mohela, and as of right now, their servicer has not acknowledged the receipt of their application, or at least they can't see it in the online portal. They have checked the documents tab and they aren't able to see anything, but they do know that they uploaded their documents. The question is, what should I do? Should I resubmit the documents? This is where I would say, websites are great because you can, get around hold time and all of that stuff, but there's a limited amount of information that you can glean from the website. So I would advise that you actually go beyond the website and call your servicer, which is Mohela in this case. Ask if you can receive a timeline for processing and confirm that they did receive your documentation, because you really want to just see if you can get a grasp on how long that transition will take, because the longer your loans are in this current forbearance, during which payments don't count toward cancellation by way of PSLF or income-driven repayment, you're kind of in limbo, and a lot of people are there with you. So call them, get a person, and ask that person to confirm that they've received your documents, and ask if they can provide you with the timeline for processing. Just keep in mind that this is still a fluid situation, and we are waiting for the results of this lawsuit. And as a result, there are some things that are beginning to happen, like the availability of more income-driven repayment plans again. But until we see people go through the process of applying for it, we don't really know how long it will take and what that transition looks like. So the more we see, the more we'll be able to share. All right, let's move on to the next question. That is FSA balance returns. FSA stands for Federal Student Aid. This person saw their balance zero out when they checked on Christmas Eve, but it was back today when they emailed us a bit later. And we needed a little more information about this question to be able to answer it accurately. And this case involved a consolidation. When there's a consolidation, your old loans that are being consolidated will be paid off, and those loans will zero out. After those loans are zeroed out, a new loan will be originated. And there's a bit of time between the old loan being paid off and the new loan being dispersed where you will see a zero balance on your account. If you're a person that checks your account frequently, then you're going to be one of those people who picks up on a zero. Now, when we help people, we always tell them your old loans are going to be paid off before your new loan is dispersed. So there's going to be a time where you see a zero balance, and that will lead some to believe that the loans are canceled, but that's just that you're midway in the consolidation process. So if you see the zero, please don't take it as a sign that your loans have been canceled. It just means that your old loans have been paid off and we're waiting for your new loan to be dispersed. So if you saw the zero balance, that's okay. Just know that that's a part of the consolidation process because we're getting rid of old loans and a new loan is being originated to take the place of those older loans. All right, let's move on to the next question. This also has to do with income-based repayment, and this is about recertifying income and switching out of the SAVE repayment plan. Let's get a bit more background before we get the answer. So just sharing some feelings here from the borrower who asked this question, and I'm sure a lot of people are feeling quite the same way. That is, so it's been difficult and exhausting to keep up with what's happening. My wife's loans are on SAVE, but are obviously in forbearance right now. I just checked the status to make sure there weren't any surprises, and I noticed a few things. First, they noticed the loans are due for IDR recertification on February 26th of this year. Next, the forbearance is set to end on April 25th of this year. And lastly, SAVE is set to end on July 2nd of this year. Not quite sure what's going on there, but these are some interesting dates to observe because, again, SAVE is tied up in a lawsuit. We do know that SAVE was implemented in July of 2023. The second half was supposed to be implemented July 1st of 2024. So that SAVE end date is likely tied to the original date that SAVE went into effect. It's an anniversary of that July 1st start of SAVE back in 2023. July 2024 is when everything started to hit the fan. All right, so back to this question. There are several questions that this borrower has proposed. The first one is, if she stays on SAVE, will they push her recertification date to sometime in the future? The second question is, are the dates for the end of the forbearance and the end of SAVE simply mathematical based on when she was put into forbearance and put on the SAVE plan? And finally, would you recommend switching to a different IBR plan? Counting the forbearance months while on SAVE that we would apply to buy back, she has 18 more months to go to reach 20. So lots of questions there, and I want to make sure that we answer each one. So for the first question, if she stays in SAVE, will they push her recertification date to sometime in the future? We're awaiting communication on that. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with SAVE. For right now, we know that staying on SAVE means the loans will remain in a forbearance where interest is not set to accrue, but at the same time, the credit for those months will not count toward PSLF. That's the guidance that we have right now. So we have to wait and see what happens with SAVE, and that will let us know when the recertification date is coming, or if she'll be recertifying under a different plan. Depends on what happens with SAVE. For the second question, I alluded to this already, but I want to reiterate here that SAVE was implemented originally July 1st of 2023. So if a person began to pay on the SAVE plan in July of 2023, the anniversary would be 12 months later, July 1st of 2024, and the end date that this borrower is seeing for SAVE is July 2nd of 2025. So that seems to line up with the original implementation date of SAVE and the fact that IBR plans or IDR plans are supposed to be recertified every 12 months. As for that last question, would I recommend switching to a different income-driven repayment plan? Here are the details on that. It depends. Right now, we are several months into this SAVE forbearance, and we're trying to figure out, what the best path is. For most people, the advice has been to stay in SAVE, especially if you're very close to the 120 qualifying payment milestone, because once you reach 120 months of employment, then you could go back and pursue the PSLF buyback. And if you were to try to switch into another plan, we don't know how long it would take to officially transition out of SAVE and into the new plan, and you might want to do the buyback anyway. So why do twice as much work? But it really depends on what happens with SAVE. If PSLF is the goal, then keep in mind that the buyback is a possibility to get back that time in forbearance. But it really depends on your individual situation. For this person with 18 months to reach 120, they're not so close that I see this causing a major hiccup. So if you feel comfortable applying for another plan now, then there's no reason not to go for it, because you don't have, like a very short time to get to PSLF. The alternative is you could stay in the SAVE plan and take the money that you would have been paying each month and set those payments aside, for the buyback, since the plan is to definitely use the buyback once the 120 months of qualifying employment has been reached. Just as an FYI, the other IDR plans that you might hear about that are out there are IBR, which is income-based repayment, ICR, which is income contingent repayment, REPAY, which is revised pay as you earn, which is the precursor to SAVE, and then also pay as you earn. Pay as you earn and ICR were supposed to be coming back. An announcement was made that they would be coming back, but there are eligibility requirements that have to do with when you borrow loans. So to figure out what your best option is in terms of affordability, we recommend that you go to studentaid.gov and use the loan simulator to estimate the payments under each payment plan. And if you find an income-driven repayment plan that has a payment that's affordable for you, ask your servicer about the timeline for making that transition. Again, for those of you who are really close to the finish line with PSLF, I would not recommend switching out of SAVE and into something else, because that's just more work to do when you could just wait until you reach your 120th month of qualifying employment and then submit the request for the buyback. All right, let's move on to the next question. The question is, should I apply for PSLF today or wait until January 15th? And I guess that question was so good, we got it twice. Let's go through some background. This person began their public service employment on January 15th of 2015. All payments from January of 2015 to August of 2023 are labeled as qualifying. The last time that they verified their employment was in August of 2023. And most recently, between September of 2024 and December of 2024, all of those payments are labeled as ineligible. And this is likely because the person is enrolled in SAVE and the loans are in forbearance. So their question, should I submit an ECF? ECF is short for Employment Certification Form, which is also known now as just the PSLF application. Should they submit an ECF today? Technically, the day, guess that they submitted this question would be 2 weeks shy of 120 months of qualifying employment. But on the other hand, the portal is saying that the January 2015 payment period is qualifying. Curious if anyone knows the rule on this. They've also said worst case scenario seems to be that they wait for 90 plus days for their employment from January 15th, 2015 through January 2nd of 2025 to be certified. and then another 90 plus days for their buyback request to come back denied, since they're only officially certified for 119.5 months. All right. So, good news, at least in my opinion, is that PSLF is counted by month. So if you're seeing that your very first month of employment, January 15th, that began January 15th of 2015, if that whole month is counting for PSLF, then that represents month number 1. And each December would be month number 12 for you. So if that first month of employment in January 2015 counts, then technically your 120th month would be December of 2024, not January of 2025. So my recommendation is to submit the PSLF application now, because we're beyond December of 2024. We're actually into January of 2025. And when it comes to the buyback, make sure that you wait until your payment count is updated to reflect your employment through now, which is January of 2025, because the buyback is only an option for people who have the 120 months of documented qualifying employment. Only after you have enough employment that your loans would have, met the requirements for PSLF had they not been in forbearance, then the PSLF buyback can work for you. So please go ahead, submit that final PSLF application, wait for that payment count to get to 120 eligible, and then go ahead and apply for that PSLF buyback to get those forbearance months converted from eligible or currently ineligible over into qualifying. And congratulations in advance. I hope the PSLF process works for you quickly. All right, time to go into our next question. As we've done in recent months, we're shifting the second half of office hours to cover questions related to current students and the FAFSA. So this question is, I recently completed the 2025-2026 FAFSA as a rising sophomore. My student aid index increased from 6,300 and it says Pell eligible to 24,400 with negligible changes to income, investments, etc. And their question is, what is this and what gives? We've seen this question come from several people who have said that nothing significant has changed in terms of their household, their income, or assets, but they're seeing significant changes in their SAI. And so I want to share quickly a bit about the the SAI before I answer the question. The SAI stands for Student Aid Index, and it's a formula-based index that results in a number ranging from negative 1,500 to 999,999. Now, where your SAI falls within that range helps your school determine how much financial support you may need. And a negative SAI indicates that you have higher financial need, and that means eligibility for need-based aid. Keep in mind, your SAI is not the expected family contribution. That was an old figure from the FAFSA. The SAI is not a dollar amount of aid you'll receive. It is not a dollar amount that your family is expected to provide. And it also does not represent the amount of financial aid you'll be offered. So if you provided your consent and approval, your tax information should have been transferred over from the IRS into the FAFSA so they could calculate your SAI for the upcoming year. During the process, you'll see two SAIs, an estimated SAI on the confirmation page of your FAFSA form, and then you'll receive an official SAI within your FAFSA submission summary. And this is something that comes after your FAFSA form has been processed. What we recommend here is that you reach out to your financial aid office, because if what you're seeing in that estimate looks drastically different from what you saw last year, then perhaps there's an error with some of the information that's in the FAFSA, and your financial aid office can access it and tell you exactly what the issue is. But keep in mind, there are two SAIs. There's an estimate, and then there's also the official. So I'm wondering if what you've received is the estimate, and we're waiting for the official one, which might be more accurate, or if there's some information that needs to be updated within your FAFSA to get that SAI to be more in line with what things looked like last year. But just keep in mind, this is the second year of the new, simplified FAFSA. There's still some some bugs, not nearly as many as there were in last year's cycle, but we're still new at this. And your financial aid office, of course, is always the best point of contact for these specific types of questions because they can locate your FAFSA, they can help with corrections if there's information that is not accurate there, and they can let you know exactly what's going on with your aid offer and disbursements, all of that stuff. Remember, your campus financial aid office is the best resource for you for specific questions about your situation in your FAFSA. All right, let's move to the next question, which is also about the FAFSA. It just says help on a question with the FAFSA. Let's see what the question is. The question is from a student whose mother is a contributor to the FAFSA, and the FAFSA is asking about the date that their mother officially became a resident of the United States, but unfortunately, she is not a resident. She has a social security number due to a work permit, but the student is unsure how they should go on about filling the FAFSA. And the question is, can anyone provide us with help? So I want to show you the question on the FAFSA. It's about the state of legal residence. It's not about the country. So the question is about when your mother became a resident of your current state, not the date of becoming a U.S. citizen. So you should be able to complete this part of the FAFSA by going back and adding in the date that your mother became a legal resident of the state. So keep in mind, this is not a citizenship question at the national level. This is about the state of residence. So make sure you go back to that question and fill in the date that your mother became a resident of your current state. All right, next question. My FAFSA says I qualify for a Pell Grant. My SAP appeal was approved. However, do I qualify for Pell? All right, this question is a bit loaded. This question is about someone who is in an undergraduate program, but has already completed an undergraduate program. And this is their first time submitting the FAFSA. I'm guessing on their own. So a little bit of background. They earned a bachelor's degree in 2017, but didn't receive any financial aid with the exception of one $2,750 loan during one semester. They were denied the Pell Grant all throughout that undergraduate experience because of their parents' income, and they paid for college out of pocket. Now they are pursuing a second bachelor's degree, and they're classified as a junior/senior. This is a 2-year program that uses their previous degree classes to supplement these last 2 years of education. The student is also 33 years old and therefore considered an independent student for the purposes of the FAFSA. Now, about what they're seeing on the FAFSA. After they submitted, they saw an SAI of 1,721, and their FAFSA is stating that they may be eligible for the Pell Grant up to $5,600 along with other types of aid. They recently received a scholarship, had to reinstate SAP, and that was approved. The confusion that this person is experiencing comes from the FAFSA telling them that they may be eligible for a Pell Grant. And they're under the impression that the Pell Grant can only be used on the first undergraduate degree. And they don't want to get their hopes up on receiving aid if they don't even qualify. And this is a good question. And they've also gotten accurate grip on what's going on. The Pell Grant is for the first undergraduate degree, not for a second undergraduate degree. So the confusion may have to do with how a certain question was answered on the FAFSA. And that is, when the student begins the 2025-26 school year, what will their college grade level be? So this person is in an undergraduate program. However, this is not their initial bachelor's degree. So the question that's important is right under that. It says, when the student begins the 2025-26 school year, will they already have their first bachelor's degree? I'm wondering if you might have answered yes on this question, and that may have triggered the alert of a possible eligibility for a Pell Grant. So you want to make sure that you answer that question correctly to indicate that you are not enrolled in your first bachelor's degree program. In fact, you are working on their second bachelor's. So just want to show you a bit more from the FAFSA, these comments that show you what may have happened. And one of them is, you reported that you will either have a bachelor's degree by the start of the the 2025-2026 academic year, or you're pursuing another degree. The next comment, you're not eligible for for a federal Pell Grant because you reported that you have a bachelor's degree or you are working on a degree beyond a bachelor's degree. The next comment, you may not be eligible for a federal Pell Grant because you reported that you have a bachelor's degree or are working on a degree beyond a bachelor's degree. All of this is to say, if you're working on your second bachelor's degree, you had it right. The Pell Grant is not going to be an option for you because the Pell Grant is reserved for the first undergraduate degree. But for clarification on your specific circumstance, again, I can never say too many times, reach out to your campus-based financial aid office because they can pull your records, look at your situation, and give you a very specific answer for your specific concern. All right. And our last question has to do with the FAFSA. What's the deadline for the FAFSA this semester? Quick point of clarity here. The FAFSA is an annual form and it applies to the entire academic year. And schools can have different ways of charting out their academic year. So in general, the deadline for the FAFSA for the current academic year, which is 2024-2025, that deadline is June 30th of 2025. A lot of people hear that date and think, why is this so late? It's June 30th, 2025, but we're in the school year right now. Some people aren't aware of the FAFSA or don't complete it until late in the academic year. And if they were entitled to aid based on what's in their FAFSA, then that aid would apply for the entire academic year. So the deadline is June 30th of 2025. And if there are corrections, they must be submitted by September 14th of 2025. Now, looking forward to the next academic year, 2005-2026, the deadline is June 30th, 2026, and corrections must be submitted by September 13th of 2026. Now, even though the deadline for the FAFSA is so, far out, it's toward the end of the academic year, you still want to get it done as soon as possible and as accurately as possible. Each state has a priority deadline for aid eligibility. And for the state of Maryland, that deadline is typically March 1st. If you are a Maryland resident, you want to make sure that you are connected to MHEC, which is the Maryland Higher Education Commission. And you definitely want to visit them online so that you can get up-to-date information about state scholarship and grant programs. As of when we received this question, the page still had the 24-25 deadlines, but I'm sure that will be updated soon to reflect 25-26 deadlines. You can go to mhec.maryland.gov to see their scholarship and grant deadlines. You can also visit studentaid.gov for information about deadlines related to financial aid at the federal level, but also for states. And I do want to close out this question by sharing a resource from Federal Student Aid. This is pulled straight from their Twitter account, and it answers the question, which FAFSA form should you complete? Because every year, if you're continuing your education, you're going to be kind of in this space of there are two cycles happening at the same time. So if you're in school right now for the 24-25 year, you want to complete the 24-25 FAFSA, and you have until June 30th of 2025 to complete that form, but it's best to do it as soon as possible. If you're looking at classes between July 1st, 2025 and June 30th of 2026, then that means you need the 2025-2026 FAFSA, and that is now available. Again, get that done as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible, and know that that information will be used to generate your financial aid offer for the 2025-2026 academic year. If you plan to be enrolled during both of those academic years, 24-25 and 25-26, then you need to complete both of those FAFSAs if you want to be considered for federal financial aid. And when it comes to summer aid, some schools may classify a summer session as a part of the existing school year that the spring semester is flowing out of. And some other schools may use that summer session as kind of like a starter or a header. So contact your school's financial aid office about which FAFSA you need to complete to be considered for aid for your summer program. Again, just wanted to close this out with a great resource from Federal Student Aid, which is very clear about which FAFSA form you should complete based on when you will be attending college, career, or trade school. All right, I have checked a couple of times for questions and I have not seen any. I'm going to check Instagram one last time and I don't see any questions there. So I want to close out, as always, by sharing a resource accessible to residents of the state of Maryland, and that is the Student Loan Ombudsman's Office. The Student Loan Ombudsman is housed in the Department of Labor. It can help student loan borrowers who are experiencing problems with their servicers, including failure by the servicer to communicate with a borrower, errors in crediting principal and interest, interest payments, misapplied payments, inaccurate interest rate calculations, billing errors, loan consolidation or modification errors, and or inappropriate collection activity or tactics. So if you are having a problem with your servicer and you have reached out in good faith, you've tried to escalate within their organization and you're just not getting anywhere, don't give up. You have a resource here in the state of Maryland in the Student Loan Ombudsman, and you can visit them online through the state's Department of Labor, and we'll make sure to drop the link to the Ombudsman's office in the chat. And since I don't see any questions, I want to go ahead and just thank you all for joining me today for another edition of Office Hours presented by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. If you'd like to keep up with the center, you can visit our website. We are at mccfw.org. We are also on Instagram and X at the MCCFW, at the MCCFW. And you can like, subscribe, also contribute your questions there. If you're not comfortable contributing your questions in, such a public place, you can visit us online at mccfw.org/contact and submit your question there, and we will likely answer it during the next edition of Office Hours. All right, I'm going to do one more check on our socials just to make sure that we don't have any questions coming in. I know that here in our area, we are still dealing with snow days, and a lot of people are off and staying with their children because schools have been closed all week, and that follows the holiday break. So looking forward to getting back engaged. Happy to be back on another edition of Office Hours, this time for January 8th, 2025. We will be back online in 2 weeks for the next edition of Office Hours, scheduled for January 22nd at noon. Again, if you have any questions in the meantime, please do feel free to tag us on social media at the MCCFW, or you can tag me. I'm at Tisa Silver. That's TISA SILVER. Tag me with your questions, comments, and as always, we appreciate your engagement. The last thing I'd like to do is to extend another congratulations to the many borrowers who have reached out to tell us about those PSLF victories. It's always, as many as I've seen, there have been hundreds that I've seen, but each one is different because there's, a specific person, a situation. Everything is different. Every person's situation is different. And victory is just, it's just a joy for me to be a part of every time that it happens. And I thank you for those of you who have come back to share your victories with us. Now, for everyone that shares a victory with us, there are some people who have not come back to tell us what has happened. So if we've assisted you in any way on the PSLF journey, I'd ask that you please reach out to your student loan strategy coach, self included, and let us know what your progress is on PSLF and if you have crossed the finish line. To date, we have officially reached the $20 million milestone, and that's for letters that we have seen. $20 million. And just think about the difference that is making in each individual's life. That's really a lot to consider. And again, a joy to be a part of. So if you've experienced that victory, please do come back and tell us, and let us share in that victory with you. And I'll do one more check for questions. I see nothing. I'm going to check Instagram one last time. All right. I promise that was the last time. As always, we appreciate your engagement. Please do continue to reach out to us and feel free to join us again, January 22nd, for the next edition of Office Hours. Until then, we will get working on annotating this episode and uploading it to our YouTube channel at the MCCFW. And until next time, be well. Take care.